Without any further delay, coming to tonight's session on the paradigm shift to natural UI, human-machine interaction in the age of AI. Let me give an introduction to our distinguished and eminent speaker of tonight, Yariv Adhan. For the past 14 years, Yariv has been leading product teams at Google. In his current role, he's leading the Zurich product team working on the Google Assistant. Prior to this role, Yariv worked on a wide range of products, including proprietary Google infrastructure, privacy and security, products designed for the emerging markets, and the YouTube monetization. Before joining Google, Yariv spent 10 years as an engineering manager in various Israeli startups and companies. A very warm welcome to you, Yariv. We are thrilled to have you here with us tonight. Handing the session over to you.
Thank you so much. Hi, nice to be here with everyone. Let me just share my screen.
Yariv, could you up the volume a little, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, but a little bit. Is this a max?
I think so. I will try to speak louder.
Okay, great. We can hear you.
Okay, so let me switch to the deck. Yeah, so AI has a lot of impact on our lives, changing a lot of things. I wanted to focus in my talk on a specific area that I am passionate about and have been involved, and it's how human-machine interaction, the way that we deal with computers, is changing and will continue to change over the years. So just a little bit, what I will cover. I will tell a little bit my own personal story, which I think provides a historical background. I will then explain what do I mean by AI and natural UI. Then I will show you a bunch of cool demos from the latest stuff that is actually launched. And then I will talk about some other aspects of how AI starts to use tools that are intended for humans. And then a little bit of why should we care and the human impact of that. So I always loved products and technology. Maybe I was born as a product manager. But ever since I was a child, I was especially fascinated by these big inventions powered by transformational technological revolutions that seem to change everything, right? So if you think about the airplane, the car, the radio, the telephone, the TV, I always try to imagine how would it feel to live through one of these transformations. Imagine that you are born when you need to take a boat from Europe to the US, and then, 50 years after you are flying business, watching a video in 6 hours. It's completely transformation. So I felt extremely lucky when about 20 years ago, when I was beginning my career, I was actually just in time for one of these revolutions when the internet happened. And at the time, through the connected PC, the PC that connected to the internet, the world we lived in was completely transformed from a physical world where we used to go to places like libraries and use things like encyclopedias and paper maps to a digital world where we consume digital information and services directly from our home. But what was especially amazing in that revolution was the rate and scale of the transformation. Within very short time, like a couple of years, we had hundreds of millions of users connected to hundreds of millions of online services. So huge transformation very quickly. And the key to enabling this rate and scale of change was these new platforms, browsers and search engines on the PC, and data centers and servers on the back end. And that made it very easy to anyone create a web page that then everyone in the world could find. And they were optimized for scale. And combined, they connected between users and websites at an unforeseen scale. And of course, new industries emerged and all the industries were disrupted. If you are looking at which are today's biggest companies, Google, Amazon, Facebook, all of this did not exist at all before that happened. So I was very excited. And at that point, I thought, wow, I'm living the revolution of a lifetime. But less than 10 years after, another transformation took place, which seemed to be even bigger than before one. And I think people that coming from India, of course, know what I'm talking about. This is mobile first, right? 10 years after the connected PC changed our world forever, the mobile internet happened. The device changed. The clunky PC shrunk to a pocket-sized device, and the network cables were cut loose. So this is not a huge change, right? Basically, the size of the device got a bit smaller, so you can carry it around. And of course, you don't need any more cables. You can connect via cellular. It's big, but it's not science fiction compared. But that completely changed the picture. First, as you know, the internet became accessible also in countries where landlines didn't exist. So instead of hundreds of millions of users, mostly in the US and Western Europe, we had billions of people from all around the world. Whole continents experienced the internet mobile first, right? But it wasn't just that we had more people now connected to the technology. The other thing was, as the device was no longer stationary, but rather you followed you wherever the user went, usage exploded. It quickly became the most used device, basically 24/7, right? We all know we're addicted to these devices. So we had one dimension, which is we have many more users using it. We had another dimension that you use it much more time. So before the PC was connected, you used only technology in the office, maybe, or other places. Then it came home, now it's in your office. The other thing is that you're using it much more. But I think the more interesting thing was that new classes of usage emerged. Because we had new sensors, camera, microphone, GPS, gyros, accelerometers, totally new classes of apps and interactions became. Selfie, Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Twitter, checking into a location, mobile payments, walking directions, email and news on the go, navigation. All of these things that today we're taking for granted and we use all the time did not exist until we had the device and a bunch of sensors in our pocket. And I think that now again, we are seeing another revolution happening at an unprecedented speed and scale. And this is AI. So again, I want to make sure that what we've seen a revolution in one. We have many more users connected to technology once after we have computer connected and mobile. We have seen users connected much more time during the day to technology. And the third thing that we're seeing is new classes of using the technology and new companies that we haven't seen before. And a third transformation is happening now, and it's powered by AI. And I like to think of it as the paradigm shift to natural UI. Why natural UI? And UI is user interface, to those of you that don't know. Through the power of AI, people can start interacting with machines in the same natural way we interact with each other. We can communicate in natural language, we can speak to it and it speaks back to us. We can augment the conversation, showing it stuff, pointing it at things, looking at pictures. We can rely heavily on context and memory, and we can even enjoy personality. And I will show all of these in the demo, humor, opinions. So basically, we're shifting from a world where humans had to adapt to machines to learn how to use computers to a world where machines are learning how to adapt to humans. So, and this time, it's not that the device is just changing, right? So we've seen the computer change, became a bit smaller, and it became a phone. I think it's disappearing altogether. I think we will no longer interact with a single device to get technology, but rather devices will just be there everywhere. They will be connected and we will be able to interact with them. It will be speakers, it will be the stuff that you wear, it will be the lights and the appliances in your house, it will be your car, it will be your headphones, it will be all around you. And you will just talk to it and you will just interact with it in the same manner that we communicate with other people. And similar to the other two transformations, this is the potential to unlock the expansion through the three different dimensions I discussed. One, more users. We have seen as we connected the PC and the phone, more users started to interact. But still, if you want to use a phone or a computer, you need to know how to read and write. You need to feel comfortable with technology. You need to do stuff with your fingers. And we know that sometimes if you're not very literate or if you're old, these are a little bit hard. Natural language is the most universal interface. Everyone knows how to use it. So if natural language becomes the way that we interact with technology, it actually evens out across geographies, cultures, across age and socioeconomic groups, and even beyond literacy and technical literacy barriers. It is also the most robust interface. It has infinite expressive powers, allowing users to easily and naturally express complex intents. We know that still, while a lot of users are using chat, not everyone feels comfortable ordering stuff online or using the bank online, part of it because the UI is complex. But everyone can say, I'm hungry, I want to order food, or I need to order a flight, or I'm looking for a hotel, or show me a recipe for a birthday dinner. So once we get and make these complex UI into simple intents, we are opening the technology to everyone. And the AI basically is taking the burden of understanding the intent and finding what is the best way to fulfill it. So what we will find out that we'll get many more users using it that are currently not using because of these barriers. We will also see more usage. We have seen how shifting from a physical world to a connected digital world impacted people's capacity to consume information and services, right? We also saw how further this scaled when we moved to a PC to a phone. With natural UI, this will completely explode. Imagine that technology is always there. There is always a mic you can speak with, of course, with privacy and security taken care of, in the car, with your TV, on the wall, with your watch, with the things you're wearing, everything around you can interact with, and they're connected at the back end or on the device to help you. It's there all the time. So we expect also that, again, that there will be much more usage of technology. But finally, the thing that I'm excited most about is this new classes of using technology, right? I showed before that once mobile happened, we started to use it for new things that did not exist before. Taking a selfie, checking into a location, sharing stuff with people, pinning, and all these came to existence once we took our phones with us in our pockets. And it was very hard to imagine that before we actually used it. And the phones still have very simple sensors, just a camera, a mic, and maybe a GPS and a few accelerometers. Now imagine what kind of new classes of usage will happen when new sensors will come that can connect to your body metrics, that can understand what you're talking, that maybe can understand your mood, that will know what's happening in the room, who's around you. So I think that this will unlock a new class of interactions that we don't have yet. So this is, again, basically where I'm excited, because I think we're seeing a third revolution that will get many more users using technology much more in whole new ways that we cannot imagine. So I've been doing a lot of talking now. I want to do a very short demo showing a little bit of what can be done now. I will use the Google Assistant that I'm working on. There are other assistants that allow it as well. And everything that I'm showing you is already launched. You can do it also on your Android phone. Let me just switch. So this is my phone. So one thing that we said is that we want to level out and make it very easy for people to consume information that otherwise maybe some people don't feel comfortable, don't know how to do. So for example, you come to visit me in Zurich in Switzerland, and you want to know what are some interesting things you can do around Zurich. So the way to ask it is just like that, the same way you would do with a friend. What are some interesting things I can do around Zurich?
Here are some details.
So you see, I just asked it very simply, and it shows me with a map and very easy to click the stuff I can do in Zurich. I can then even continue and ask, what are the opening times of the Swiss National Museum?
Here is information from Zurich Tourismus.
Directly I see, okay, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I can even ask, how far is the Swiss National Museum from the central train station?
Here's what I found.
And it gets me, okay. So this is interesting. You've seen how I'm finding information in a very natural way, and I can find rich information. But what I said is that once you open a new way to interact with the machine, new ways of interactions, and this is very exciting because we launched the Google Assistant about 20 years after we launched Google Search. And in Google Search, we get billions of queries every day. And still, the moment we launched it, the moment we let people speak to a computer, we suddenly saw new queries that we haven't seen before. And when you think about it, these are queries that you cannot do in any other way. So some examples, and all of these examples are taken from real things that user did. Here is an example. How do you spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious?
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is spelled SUPERCALIFRAG.
And so on and so on. Or for example, we're seeing users asking very funny questions like, what is the name of the mountain in Iceland that no one can pronounce its name?
Eyjafjallajökull. Here's a summary from NPR. Is an attempt to pronounce the name of the glacier.
So we're seeing new ways of consuming information. But what we started to see is that people are expecting, once you speak to it and it speaks back and it moves to voice, there is a different kind of expectation. And suddenly we see people asking, roar like a gorilla.
Here's a gorilla. Hey, do you want to hear the sound of a monkey?
Sure.
Great. This is what monkeys sound like.
But even more interesting, we started seeing people having a relationship with the machine and stuff that you wouldn't expect people to ask a computer. And again, these are all things that we've seen users asking. Do you have a boyfriend?
I guess you could say I'm still searching.
Do you believe in love?
Love is all about a good connection.
And of course, once people are starting to ask that, it also raises the bar on our ability to understand what they're actually looking for. And it's funny because then people also expected to get back stuff. Sing me a happy birthday song.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday from Google. Happy birthday to you.
Compliment me.
There are roughly 100 billion trillion stars in the universe, and you're brighter than them all.
And we're seeing millions and millions of these queries. So basically, we're starting to see a new type of connections between humans and machines. And this was only using the voice and the fact that when I speak to something, it speaks to me back. I have a different expectations than when I type and get a written answer. But of course, we want to be able to do more, to be more effective. So we want to be able to connect using AI, other AI capabilities. So for example, we know that you use the phone, so we created the ability to use the phone only with voice. So the most important thing on a phone is take a selfie.
Okay, get ready.
No, it takes a selfie. Or, for example, we all know that there has been a lot of advancement in terms of translation. So we were thinking, why keep using, translate in a traditional way? Imagine that you come again to Switzerland and you don't understand German and you want to be able to communicate. So how would that work? So we said, let's build a human translator using a machine. Be my German translator.
Okay, I'll be your interpreter.
Excuse me, I have a problem. Can you help me?
Entschuldigen Sie mich, ich habe ein Problem. Können Sie mir helfen?
I lost my baggage on the train. What should I do?
Ich habe mein Gepäck im Zug verloren. Was sollte ich tun?
So suddenly, because it can interact this makes it possible to talk to other people, and it changes not the way just we interact with the machine, but also how we interact with people. And again, we're connecting the AI of understanding what I want to do, the understanding the intent that I want to translate with the AI that can actually translate information. But also, of course, it needs to understand your world. So we wanted to make sure that it knows that it can learn about what does it mean your home or your work and this kind of thing. So you can ask stuff like, how long will it take to get to work by car?
Here are some details.
So it understands that I'm actually asking the distance between my home and my workplace, and because I live in my home and I go to my workplace every day, it learns it automatically, and then it can help me that, right? And then I can even make these complicated queries. Remind me when I get home to tell my wife that the demo went great.
All right, I'll remind you when you get home.
So it understood the natural language that I use. It understood that it actually wants to create a reminder and that the trigger is when I arrive at home, and it did well. But then we also wanted to make it a little bit more visual, right? Because AI can also see and recognize stuff. So one thing that is currently not every user can do is finding photos, right? So for example, can you show me photos with my families in the mountain? So we are combining the ability to both understand natural language and the ability to analyze photos. So you don't need to label photos and you don't need to be an expert how to search photos. You just say it and you see all your beautiful photos with the family from the mountains. But then we wanted to take it a step back and really think, how can we give eyes to these things? So one of the things that is very challenging for me, living in a German-speaking country, is understanding email or understanding post or understanding the news. So let me just trigger that. So imagine you see
a photo of words you want to understand.
Imagine you see this bunch of text and you want to translate it. So once you just simply take a photo, now it analyzes the information. One, you can translate it on the spot. But the cool thing, because it can speak.
NMERIM. VZUG is realizing its mobility hub. With the move into the new building in Gobli, the social services intend to outsource the operation of the emergency accommodation to an organization. The external operator controls the day-to-day operation.
So basically, we're using again the ability to understand voice, to understand words, to understand images in a whole new way that reads out to you a translated image. So this feels like a completely immersive experience that builds on AI. So this was a short demo. I have a lot of other examples, but unfortunately, I don't have all the time in the world. All right, so what we've seen is the use of natural language understanding to go from a speech to intent. We've seen voice verse first interactions, things that you couldn't do without voice, like, how do you spell something? How do you say something that is too hard to pronounce? Making the noise of something. We've seen understanding the world, like when I asked about Zurich. We've seen understanding the user, where is work, where is home. We've seen how do you integrate with devices and apps, with translation, with the camera. We've seen understanding of image and text recognition. And we've even seen personality, the ability to talk about love, about relationships, and to attach back to the user, right? And these are all these new capabilities that are impossible without AI, that open up a whole new way of interaction. The other thing is that that is very interesting is we were thinking oh, once a machine can interact like a human, what if we allow it to use tools that were designed for humans? For example, the phone, right? So many times humans can simply pick up the phone and make a reservation or order something. So I don't know if you've seen this. This is a live demo of the real machine, the AI, calling a restaurant or a hairdressing salon and trying to contact to schedule an appointment. And we built the machine such it will really talk like a human with all the and 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 it's funny to see that actually the machine sometimes understands better than the human. So this is like a demo that we showed live. Let me play it as a video.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second.
So on the left, it's a machine.
Sure. What time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
And now another call to a restaurant.
How may I hear you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people? When?
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, actually, we need to for like after like 5 people. For 4 people, you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
When, tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday, the 7th.
Oh no, it's not too busy. You can come for 4 people, okay?
Oh, I gotcha. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
So what you saw was actually on the left was a machine. It was not edited that made the call to a human. And because we understand, we can also do it over the phone. And it opens a whole new way of possibilities. And you have seen how it really understands and can actually also fix when stuff seems to be broken, even if it's not its fault. And then the year later, we were saying, what other tools are people using to complete tasks? And one of them is the browser. So we were saying, can we use machine learning to automate stuff in the browser to make things work faster? So this is another demo using browser automation.
Duplex was launched with restaurant reservations on the phone, but now we are moving beyond voice and extending Duplex to tasks on the web. We again want to focus on narrow use cases to start. So we are looking at rental car bookings as well as movie ticketing. Today, when you make a new reservation online, you have to navigate a number of pages and steps, filling out information and making selections along the way. I'm sure you're all familiar with this experience. It's time consuming, and if users leave during the workflow, businesses lose out as well. We want to make this experience better for both users and businesses. So let me show you how the assistant can do it better. Say you get a calendar reminder about an upcoming trip, and you want to book a rental car. You can just ask Google, book a national car rental for my next trip. The assistant opens the national website and automatically starts filling out your information on your behalf, including the dates of the trip. You can confirm the details with just a tap. And then the assistant continues to navigate the site. It even selects which car you like. It's acting on your behalf and helping you save time, but you're always in control of the flow. Let's go ahead and add a car seat. And once all the details are in, you can check everything one last time and just tap to finalize the reservation. You immediately get a booking confirmation. It's amazing to see the assistant complete a task online on your behalf in a personalized way. It understands the dates of your trip and your car preferences based on trip confirmations in Gmail. I also want to point out that this was not a custom integration. This required no action on part of the business to implement. What you just saw is an early preview of what we are calling duplex on the web.
So you've seen now that we can make phone calls, we can make browser, but how does that impact on the human connection? And again, I want to show you here a video. And this time, it's an old woman that is not very technical, that her granddaughter bought her one of these devices that she can speak to and speaks back. And you can see the emotional connection to the device, but you can also see how quickly she will get to ask more questions that otherwise would never happen on a different type of machine and different way of interaction. So this is the old woman, and let's see.
Cuckoo! What is raining today? Water.
Yeah.
Oh my God, answer.
It said yeah.
You say yeah.
Yeah, it's her.
Oh my God. Is a woman?
Yeah.
I'm glad to meet
What
you.
is this thing?
Hello, Goo.
Hey or okay?
This is something from the
Google.
Alphabets.
You have to say hey, Google, or okay.
Hey, Goo. Okay, Goo.
What's the weather? Yeah.
What's the weather, ask?
What the weather? You want to know what is the weather?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
In Flagler Beach tomorrow, there will be showers with a high of 65 and a low of 56.
With this mystery here.
What's it, man?
I'm scared. I'm scared. It's a mystery. Oh my gosh. Yo.
Ask Google to play an Italian song.
Cuckoo. Hi, Cuckoo.
You have to say hey or okay.
Hey, okay.
Google.
Tomorrow in London, it'll be sunny with a high of 41 and a low of 30.
So, yeah, I have a bunch of other examples, but I think we're a little bit short on time, so we'll... I think like it's very interesting to think, like we've seen the emotional connection, and then she asked her actually to play music and to dance. And it's really amazing to think, you know, would that woman have do the same on a phone or a computer where you need to type and look at the screen, and how long would it take her to learn how to use it for her own needs? And as we look into the future, we're kind of thinking, you know, hey, what could that be when more devices and more sensors can connect? So I want to leave some time for questions. So thank you so much for listening. So just to summarize what I'm saying, I think we're like in the beginning of a paradigm shift of shifting from us using computers like I'm using here, using my keyboard on a dedicated device with a screen, to simply talking to devices all over that are speaking back to us, that understand visual and other sensory information. And I really think it's going to change the way that our and next generations are going to interact with technology. So thank you.
Thank you, Yari, for delivering such a brilliant webinar. And yes, we do have questions lined up for you already. If you can just check the Q&A section, we can take questions from there. So the first question is from Rohit Nagpal. Digitally interconnected world means your personal details start getting captured and stored. Are these details stored locally on the user's device or on the company's servers? How does the company ensure that the data is used ethically, and who decides this ethical limit?
Yeah, so for sure, I think like definitely security and privacy are super critical and important. And if we learned anything from the previous transformation, is that we need to think about privacy and security to begin with. And exactly the way that Rohit is alluding, some of the stuff is on the server and some of the stuff is on the client. And stuff that is on the client, we definitely don't want to move it to the server. So anything that is about the environment, who is in the room, if it's a watch, maybe some of the metrics that it's connecting, anything we're trying to do on device, and we're actually building very good models for understanding you on device. So we don't even need not just the data, but we don't even need to send the queries to the cloud. There is stuff that is on the cloud, like, like I showed your photos or other things. So we want to allow to connect to it. But again, we want to make sure that it's encrypted end to end. To your question, who decides on it? I think like one of the strong principles that always we apply to is about transparency and control. So we want to make it very transparent to the user, very easy to understand. What is the data that we have access to? How are we using the data? What is the data used for? What is the benefit for the user? And how can they control it? And the other stuff is, of course, control. We want to make it very easy and simple to turn anything off or on or to manage it. So like this key basic of that the user owns their data, transparency and control, and stuff that is on the device, stays on the device are the key principles that we take it very seriously.
Great. So Rohit, I hope that answers your question. Let's take the next one. This is from Sharan Pillai. There are several instances while using the assistant where we need to tap on the voice icon again after the assistant has just answered our request in order to take another request. How is this accessible for people with visual impairments and they wouldn't realize if they need to trigger the voice assistant again?
Excellent question. So going back to transparency and control, the reason that you need to tap again is because we want by default to shorten as much as we can the time that we're listening, that the mic is listening on, just so it doesn't capture stuff that happened by mistake that you did not intend. There is a setting that you can choose for continuous listening. So actually it's off by default, but you can do actually continuous listening as well as lift to open, so you can actually open it. Or for example, for some of our devices that have a camera or like the smart displays, you can turn it on by gazing, by looking at it, the same way you would do with a person. So I think that over time will become better and better. And I think especially when we will do it everything on the device and we will never send anything to the server, I think it will be prolonged times of listening. We also think about other stuff, right? So in order for us to listen and analyze everything, we don't want to drain the battery and other considerations. So we're trying to think holistically and give again the control to the user, because there is always trade-offs.
So we'll take this next question from our LinkedIn viewer, Sarit. What would you recommend for product designers to learn and practice to prepare for the next decade?
So I think like, again, right, like if computers did not completely replace books and TV did not completely replace radio and phone did not completely replace the computer, and AI will not completely. So I think like the traditional product management and design of UI will stay and will stay for long. So I think like, that's one thing. Saying that, there are still huge problems. We're just at the beginning. Let me share, because I actually have a slide of that. Let me share my screen again, sorry. I actually have a slide of it, so for people not to worry. Right, so there is a lot of stuff that are still yet to be solved. Language and image understanding is still very basic. I showed you a little bit of understanding context, understanding world, understanding user modeling, reasoning, and how do we communicate that to users? All the fulfillment, the personalization. I said that the device is disappearing. What is the mental model of people talking to devices? What is the right interaction model? How much is tap? How much is voice? How much should be actually doing gestures and stuff? Privacy, security, trust. So I think like we're just at the beginning of the building blocks of what makes this natural UI. I don't think it's solved yet. So I think it's good to play with the technology. So I always believe that the best way to be a product manager is to play a lot with technology. So play with this assistant, see what works, what doesn't. When do you feel that it's too personal or not personal enough? Where does it feel stupid that it doesn't understand things? What kind of use cases would you wish that it will be building? So I think like it's not even written yet. So I like someone that is now starting the career, I would strongly recommend to get to know this world of ambient, of wearables, of smart speakers, of smart assistants. But I think everyone is still in this kind of brainstorming stage, and how to monetize it. So I think it's an exciting space to learn together with the industry. But I think like learning from a user perspective, this is like what I strongly recommend. Just play with the product.
I'll take this next question from the chat window. This is from Rashmi Ranjan. What are the challenges we are facing during implementation of AI holistically across the country, and how to tackle the cybersecurity issues? It's in the chat window, Yari.
Yeah. So the challenges with the so there is a bunch of challenges when you are, and I specifically we look, again, AI in this context, so one of the huge problems of all of these ambient devices is discoverability. The user doesn't know what exactly can it do. There is no menus, right? It's very flexible. It can answer intents. Unfortunately, it doesn't understand everything, and it doesn't understand everything at the same level of quality. So sometimes you say something, and it doesn't understand you, or it does it poorly, or it misunderstands. And because it's not structured, we know how to use menus and left clicks and right clicks and all of that and buttons. We don't have yet a good way to discover what it can do and how do I ask it to do it. So I think that's one big challenge. Another big challenge is how to connect it to everything that is in the real world, whether it's apps or stores or payment capabilities and whatnot. So how does the ecosystem, right? Because for the revolution that I was speaking, websites happened, right? So websites were the ecosystem of doing things, and we created the browser. Then on the phone, we have people that are creating apps. So now that we're using voice, should we connect to existing services, like make a phone call or run the browser? Should we create new type of apps? So I think that whole ecosystem and how does information flows, and what is of course, at the end, what is the economic incentives for the players? That's another very big challenge. I think then the quality, AI is very good, but still, it's just the beginning of really understanding what it is and what it is. So I think there is a lot of work on the quality of AI. We all know there is problems of bias that is very much in the news, and some of the bias is in the models, some of the bias is in the world, and we actually want to fix it. And again, monetization is another huge problem, right? The web, Google luckily came up with an advertising model. In apps, Apple came up with an app store model where the developer gets paid for the app download. On TV, Netflix came up with a subscription model. What is the monetization model in this thing? It's still unclear. And again, that hinders because you want people and partners to join. So I think again, we're still in the beginning and people need to feel comfortable with new technologies. So I think that as a product manager, I think it's very exciting because there is still so many opportunities.
Great. The Q&A is going pretty well, audience. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and participation. In case you want to come online and talk to Yariv directly, please let me know. You raise your hand and I can unmute you. Meanwhile, we'll take this next question from Nidhi. Does the voice response adapt pauses, sentence structures of different cultures, example, Indian, German, etc.? And do you have any special use cases for developing economies where voice is main form of interaction? Example, my mother sends me voice messages on WhatsApp instead of typing.
Yes and yes. So one, we of course have different models for different languages. And I think it's less about, I think our models, so what we showed in duplex on the phone, these are different models than we use on the assistant. So I think the assistant does less and but definitely pronunciation and accent and all of that is taken into consideration. Two, definitely we see that voice is much more adapted, like more than half of our users are actually in emerging markets. India being a huge one, Brazil and Mexico are following it. And like you're saying, we're seeing like definitely the amount of searches, if you look at how many searches in India are done via voice versus others, it's uncomparable to other stuff. We have a specific group actually that looks at India and emerging markets. So for example, we did a special integrations with Times of India that can read out the newspaper, like I showed in the translation, or you can actually ask questions to find information in the website using voice. So to make it accessible to people who cannot read. We did an integration with one of the phone providers that you can actually make a phone call to assistant. So you don't need a smartphone. So even with a very simple SMS and call only device, you can get voice answers by dialing to a specific number. We did integrations with the geophone and that network. We know how fast it took in India. So we have also specific groups because we know, as you say, how much voice is used more in these markets, and we are very excited about the opportunities.
Next question is from Bala Subramanian. What is the future of audio interaction, especially in overcoming environmental and intrusion of people when interacting with the system?
So I think that I think multiple things will happen. One, I see already that younger generations feel much more comfortable interacting in voice, even in open places. So I think like as time goes by, it will just be more acceptable, or people will see it normal. So I think that will one grow. The other thing that is happening is we're getting there are different technologies that are being developed to allow to do it without actually speaking. So for example, whispering or just moving the lips and doing lip reading. There is even research projects where there is like connected to the nerve, and you just by thinking, actually you can get it. And of course, a headphone is placed in that place. So I think once these things become really good, because it's so much better than usual user interface, they will become much more prominent. I think at the moment it's a little bit also limited, but what they can actually do. So they're used a lot for setting timers, setting alarms, asking for weather, doing YouTube and Google search, things like that. But they are not as good in doing more complicated tasks. So I think that will also create motivation. But in my opinion, voice is the future. It just needs to solve some of the problems that I discussed. And I think that being able to do it quietly and safely in public is one of these, and they're interesting solutions.
Okay, we have a few more minutes left. Audience, thank you again for your interaction. We'll try and take as many questions as possible. Yarik, there are a few questions about Google and Google products. I mean, is it okay to take them, or do you want to go through them once?
I'm not necessarily a big expert on other...
Okay, so there's this question from Puneet. How would the AI system actually be able to give choices if an individual makes first-time interactions? For example, I don't go on road trips, but when I want to go to one, there is no pattern to choose from.
So I think this is one of the open design questions of how can we get to know the user in a way that doesn't feel like work or doesn't feel like an annoying questionnaire by a machine, right? Because no one wants to play like ping pong, questionnaires, to give you preferences. Either it can understand from context, or it can access existing information, or it should be able to understand longer, more complex questions, or that they provide more context. But I think this is like the personalization and providing good recommendations. What is the stuff that you like to eat? What are the places that you like to hang out? Who are the people that you care most about? What is your favorite music? So these are a lot of the questions that we're working on. And really in the same way that we understand the world, we want to understand the personal world. So it's still kind of work in progress. I don't think there is a definite answer to that.
Okay. So we have two raised hands here. Is it okay if I call them online, Yari?
Sure.
Okay. Sharon, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Hey, hi Ari. Thank you for the amazing talk and thank you for answering my question earlier, right? I just wanted to ask you a quick question. So I read an NN Group article recently that, when users were, talking to customer service bots, right? When they figured out that they were talking to a bot, they sort of, felt cheated because they felt that the company didn't give them enough importance if they connected them straight to a bot rather than a human agent on the other side. So now that Google Duplex is really doing a great job with sounding more human by the day, how do you see this acceptance of the voice assistant or just the smart assistant in general in the customer service segment in the future, especially by the older set of users who are still not used to such a service? If the question made sense.
Yeah, the question makes sense. So Duplex is not operating in that customer service, but to your point, I think like one of the key things that we did from the beginning was let's not provide illusions for users and make it very clear from the beginning that in every interaction that this is a machine, and this is a machine that is not trying to be like a human or human, but tries to interact in a way that is convenient and natural to humans. So to your point, I think that, and that's what Duplex does, by the way, every time at the beginning of a conversation, it says, hello, while I may sound human, I'm a robot from Google, because I completely agree with you. I think that when it's your expectations are set that you're not talking to a human, you're actually amazed and surprised for the good side. Wow, this is a really smart machine. I'm so happy. Actually, it was, sometimes more useful than human, definitely more patient. So I think the key is always, like I said, transparency and control, which in this case, in my personal opinion, one, be very clear that this is a robot and provide the user a choice. Hey, I don't want to use the robot. I want to talk to a person. And then maybe you will need to pay more, or maybe you will need to wait longer on the line. But I think that if anyone that goes on the line that tries to pretend to be a human, they will fail. And I agree with you, it will achieve the opposite result. What we have seen in research, by the way, is that even when the humans know exactly that it's a robot, we are seeing very different types of interactions depending on whether the robot speaks in a very robotic short sentences versus slightly longer human-like and also a human voice. So we see like a lot of positive indications that people are asking more questions, people are asking longer questions, people are calling the support center more afterwards, people are more likely to interact with the merchant. So they appreciate the human interaction even when they don't know humans. So I again, it goes back to transparency and control. And I think like, again, going back to before, we should be very careful not to use this technology to imitate humans. I completely agree.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
so
Sharon,
much.
for the great question. We'll just move on. We have few more minutes left, Yari. I'll take one more question if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. So this next question is, I'm not sure of the name. AI is still emerging and many organizations are yet to start exploring this field. What a product manager is expected to know or be skilled in this field? Great question.
So I think that in these days, product managers that work in the software industry should understand AI. So they don't need to be able to code AI, but I think like it's really important that they understand how it works, that they understand the limitations, that they understand the dangers and issues, that they understand the type of problems that are good for AI and that are not good for AI, that the type of data, how to formalize. And at Google, we're doing a lot of coaching. So I myself, I give a class that is called Machine Learning for product people, which is also for product managers, UX people, program managers, how to think about putting design inside, like signals inside the design and so forth. I think in the same way, and this is not different from product managers, like I think it's important to understand what is databases and you know, what is mobile, what is web, like so they need to understand the different type of technologies and how they relate to apps. So I think AI is becoming a core technology. And like I said, I think they need to understand the type of AI apps that are out there, what are they good for and what are they not? Like really understand, you know, voice apps, you know, whether it's in searches, in translate, in assistant, image recognition apps, what they can do. So I think it's new types of technologies and interactions that product managers need to know in order to develop better apps. Because I think a lot of things that are currently complicated in different apps, if you would use AI or voice input or image input, you can make it significantly more intuitive for users. So it's definitely a new area that it's important to learn and understand and differentiate yourself.
Awesome, great. I'm not sure if we have a few more minutes for questions, but Yariv, you take the lead. Tell me if we should take questions or we should end the session here, because we are not short on questions at all.
No, I unfortunately need to jump on another meeting now.
Okay, great, yes.
Thank you very, very much.
Understandable. So just give me a moment here to share my screen. Audience, please don't forget to scan this QR code to have a one-on-one session with a faculty and get all your doubts clarified on transitioning into a product manager role. So Yariv, now this is again a task for you. You have to pick the best question. And like I promised at the beginning, that the best question will get a 3-digit code from the institute. So from the questions that we have taken and the ones that we have not taken, if you can let me know which is the best question, and I can declare the winner. A few of them are in answer section, few are still open, and a few in the chat section that we took. This is going to be a tough one, but...
Do I need to do it now or later?
Okay, you can tell me later, no worries. I'll send it over an email to you.
Yeah, if you can send me later, I can look through, so I wanted to do a good job, okay?
Yes, let's do that, Yariv.
Okay, thank you, bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you for delivering a brilliant session, Yariv, and please accept this certificate of appreciation as a small gesture from the Institute end. So if you scan the QR code on the screen, it will take you to the recording of this session, and we'll be sharing the same on YouTube.
Thank you.
We're grateful for the time and effort that you took to share your thoughts and amazing insights. It was great having you here.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Arif. And audience, thank you for joining in. It was great interacting with you all. Do not forget to register for the webinar, which is scheduled for day after tomorrow with Uday Padmanabhan. And with that note, I end tonight's session. Happy learning and stay skilled. Have a great night.